I have always loved the stillness of this hour. The sky over the harbor is a deep, soft gray. I sat with my coffee on the veranda. I watched the gulls circle the masts of the boats. The air smelled of salt and wet wood. It was my first spring in this house. It was meant to be my final house. My phone lit up on the wrought iron table. It was a text from my daughter, Vanessa. "Mom, heavy rain forecast for later. Gavin will be over to check the gutters. Don't try to get the ladder out yourself. We don't need another fall." I replied with a simple okay. I took another slow sip of coffee. My move to Port Haven was my idea. At 72, I wanted simplicity. I wanted a view of water. I wanted a small, manageable space. The bungalow was perfect. It was a 10-minute walk to the village. It had this wide, wraparound veranda. I bought it with the proceeds from the city condo. That sale had funded my quiet retirement. It was supposed to be enough. Vanessa and Gavin helped with the move. They were efficient and organized. They said I was brave to start fresh. Gavin patted my shoulder. "We've got your back, Alara," he said. "You're not alone in this." It felt reassuring at the time. The first help was financial. It happened 3 weeks after I moved. Vanessa came for a weekend visit. She noticed my checkbook on the kitchen counter. "Mom, you're still doing all this by hand." "It's how I've always done it," I said. "It's how mistakes happen," she said gently. "Let Gavin set you up with online banking. All your accounts in one place. You can pay bills with a click. It's so much safer." I was hesitant. I liked the paper trail. Gavin was a financial advisor. It made sense to use his expertise. He came over the following Tuesday. He brought his laptop. He was patient as he set everything up. "See, Alara, all linked. Your checking, your savings, your investment fund. Now we can help you keep an eye on things. No more late fees. No more worrying." He showed me how to log in. The password was something strong he created. He wrote it down on a card for me. "Keep this somewhere safe," he said. "Or better yet, just let us handle it. You shouldn't have to stress about this stuff." It felt like a relief. A small weight lifted. The next help was logistical. My car was getting old. The drive to the big grocery store was 30 minutes. Gavin offered to add me to their family membership. "We do a big shop every other week," Vanessa said. "We can just get your things. It's easier." Soon, a delivery started arriving every other Saturday. They chose my groceries. They said it saved me the trip. Then it was my medications. My mild blood pressure prescription. Vanessa suggested using their pharmacy. "It's the same chain, Mom. But we can pick it up for you. One less errand." I gave her my prescription card. The bottles started coming in their shopping bags. My world was getting smaller. It was happening in soft, reasonable steps. Each step was framed as care. Each step removed a task from my hands. I told myself it was kindness. I was lucky to have such involved children. My friends said so. "You're so fortunate," they'd remark. My kids never call. The first real change came with the will. It was 6 months after the move. Gavin and Vanessa came for dinner. After the plates were cleared, Gavin leaned forward. "Alara, we need to talk about your will. The one you have is from when Dad was alive. It's outdated. With the new house and accounts, it needs updating. We want to make sure everything is clear, to avoid any confusion later." He made it sound procedural, like getting a passport renewed. "I can have my lawyer draw up a new one," I said. Vanessa touched my hand. "Mom, Gavin's firm has an excellent estate attorney. He's already done ours." It would be simpler to keep it all in the family, so to speak. She smiled. We can have the documents ready for you to sign. No fuss. I felt a flicker of resistance. It was a cold, small flame in my chest. But their faces were so open, so full of concern. All right, I said. If you think it's best. The documents arrived a week later. They were thick, full of legal language. Gavin sat with me at the veranda table. He used a yellow highlighter. This just names Vanessa as your executor. This is a standard power of attorney for finances. It lets us help manage things if you're ever unwell. This is a healthcare directive. It names us as your agents, so we can make sure doctors listen. He pointed to the signature lines. Just sign an initial here, here, and here. It's all boilerplate. It's for your protection. I signed. The pen felt heavy. Life settled into a new rhythm. My groceries came. My bills were paid online. I had my walks, my books, my view. But I began to feel like a tenant in my own life. A well-cared-for guest. The first betrayal was quiet. It was about the cottage. My grandfather had left me a lakeside cottage. It was 3 hours north. It was rustic and simple. It held every summer memory of my childhood. I hadn't been up in a few years. The drive was long. I mentioned to Vanessa I might rent it out for a few weeks in the summer, just to have some extra income, to pay for a small travel fund. Her reaction was swift. Rent it out, Mom, no. The liability is enormous. What if a renter falls off the dock? What if they start a fire? You'd lose everything. It's not worth the risk. Then maybe I should sell it, I said. Use the money for a nice trip. A cruise or something. Gavin fielded that one. The market up there is terrible right now, Alara. You'd be selling at a loss. And the capital gains tax would be brutal. It's better to hold on to it. As a family asset. A month later, I got a call from my cousin Margaret. She lived near the lake. Alara, I drove past the cottage last weekend. There was a sold sign on the property. Did you finally sell? My blood went still. There must be a mistake, I said. I didn't sell anything. I called Vanessa. My hands were trembling. Oh, Mom, she said, sighing. We were going to tell you. Gavin found a fantastic buyer. A corporate retreat group. They paid 20% over asking. It was an offer we couldn't refuse. We didn't want to bother you with the stress. You've been so content lately. You sold my cottage, I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. Our asterisk cottage, Mom, she corrected softly. And we reinvested every penny. It's in a much better structured fund now. For the family's future. Your grandkids' future. You'll see the statements. It's all for the best. I sat down. I felt the loss like a physical hollow. I had not said goodbye. I had not walked through the empty rooms one last time. They had erased a piece of my history and called it a smart financial move. I started paying closer attention. The next statement for my investment fund came. I logged in with the password Gavin had written down. The balance seemed healthy, but the transaction history was confusing. There were transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. Coded entries like FAM LLC and VGR Holdings. I wrote down the codes on a note card. I tucked it into my recipe box. I asked Gavin about it during Sunday lunch. What's the FAM LLC transfer? He didn't miss a beat. That's just the fund rebalancing, Alara. Moving money between sub-accounts. It's all internal. You don't need to worry about the mechanics. Your money is growing. That's the important thing. Vanessa passed the potatoes. Mom, you're micromanaging again. You have to trust Gavin. This is what he does for a living. The gaslighting began in earnest then. It was always subtle. It was always dressed as love. I would mention a bill I hadn't received. You must have forgotten it came, Mom. I paid it online for you last week. Remember? I would ask about a withdrawal. That was for your new insurance premium. We talked about this. Your memory is playing tricks. They started having conversations around me, as if I weren't there. She's getting more confused, Vanessa would say to Gavin. She asked about the cottage again today. Gavin would nod, somber. We should monitor that. For her own safety. My confidence began to crack. Maybe I was forgetting. Maybe I was losing my grip. The world they described was so certain, so full of facts and figures. My world was just feelings. A deep, persistent unease. The turning point was a letter. It was from the county clerk's office. It was addressed to me. It had come in the regular mail. Vanessa usually collected the mail. She said she sorted out the junk, but she was running late that day. I retrieved it myself. It was a notice of a property tax reassessment. For my bungalow. The owner of record was listed as Fam LLC. My address, but not my name. I held the paper. The words swam in front of me. I felt a cold, clear clarity. It was the first piece of hard evidence. It was a crack in their story. I did not confront them. I made a copy of the letter on the small printer in my study. I hid the copy in a different place. I put the original back in the envelope. I left it on the counter. Vanessa would find it later. I needed to see what they would do. She arrived an hour later. I was pruning the geraniums on the veranda. I watched through the window. She opened the letter. Her face tightened. She folded it and put it in her purse. She never mentioned it to me. That was the day I began my real work. I became an archivist of my own life. I bought a small, lockable fireproof box. I hid it in the back of my closet, under a pile of winter blankets. I started collecting documents. I requested a copy of my property deed from the county website. It took me 3 days to figure out the portal. The deed showed a transfer 6 months prior. From Alara Vance, a married woman, to Fam LLC. It was signed with a signature that mimicked mine. It was notarized. The notary's stamp was from a firm in Gavin's office building. I printed it. I placed it in the box. I called the bank. I pretended I had lost my online access. After verifying my identity, the customer service agent helped me. I established new login credentials. I did it from the library computer. I saw the full transaction history. The reinvested money from the cottage sale. A large portion had been transferred to Fam LLC. Smaller, regular amounts moved to an account labeled VGR. Vanessa Grace Richardson. My daughter. I took screenshots. I printed them at the library. 50 cents a page. I found the healthcare directive I had signed. I read it carefully for the first time. It did not just name them as agents. It included a clause. It stated that if 2 physicians deemed me incapable, the agents could petition for full guardianship of my person and my estate. The physicians could be chosen by the agents. I had signed away my autonomy, with a highlighted line and a reassuring smile. My heart was a steady, cold drum. I felt no rage. I felt a profound, focused calm. This was no longer about hurt feelings. This was a systemic takeover, executed with paperwork and patience. My response had to be the same. I needed a lawyer, not one connected to Gavin's world. I used the library computer again. I searched for elder law attorneys. I looked for firms in the next county over. I found one, Miriam Chen. Her bio spoke of protecting client autonomy. She had a background in forensic accounting. I called from a pay phone near the ferry terminal. I made an appointment for the following week. I said I was consulting about estate planning. It was not a lie. Miriam Chen's office was quiet and modern. She was a woman in her 50s. She had sharp, observant eyes. I laid out my story. I did not cry. I did not raise my voice. I presented the documents from my fireproof box. The deed, the bank statements, the will and the directives, the property tax notice. She listened. She took notes. She examined each paper. "This signature on the deed transfer," she said. "It's a good forgery. But it's a forgery. The notary is a problem. We will need to move carefully. They have positioned themselves as your caretakers. Any direct challenge will make you look unstable. They will use the documents you signed against you." "What do I do?" I asked. My voice was steady. "We build a parallel case," she said. "We do not tip them off. You continue life as normal. You act grateful for their help. Meanwhile, we systematically dismantle their legal standing. It will be slow. It will be expensive. It will feel like nothing is happening for long stretches. Can you do that?" I looked out her window at the city skyline. I thought of my quiet veranda. I thought of the sold cottage. "Yes," I said. "I can do that." The strategy began. Miriam's first step was a formal capacity assessment with an independent geriatric psychologist of my asterisk choosing. I told Vanessa I was joining a senior wellness group. It required a baseline cognitive exam. She was suspicious. "Why would you need that, Mom? You're sharp as a tack." "It's just a formality," I said, waving a hand. "For the group insurance." She reluctantly agreed to drive me. She waited in the waiting room. Dr. Aris tested me for 2 hours. Memory, reasoning, judgment, financial literacy. I passed with high marks. He wrote a detailed report. It stated I had full capacity to manage my person and my affairs. He noted I was under no undue influence at the time of the assessment. Miriam filed the report with the court. It was a preemptive strike. It created a sealed record of my competence before they could file for guardianship. Next, Miriam began subpoenaing records. From the bank, from the title company, from the notary's commission. She worked with a forensic document examiner. The examiner compared the forged signature on the deed to my known signatures. He wrote a report. He concluded it was highly probable it was not authentic. Miriam met with the notary, a young woman from Gavin's office. Under questioning, she broke down. She admitted Gavin had brought her the document. He told her his mother-in-law was housebound. He said she had signed it in his presence. She had notarized it as a favor, without ever seeing me. This was a violation of notarial law. Her commission was suspended. Each step was a small, quiet action. A filed motion. A requested deposition. A financial audit trail. I lived my days as usual. I thanked Vanessa for the groceries. I listened to Gavin's financial advice. I nodded and smiled. Inside, I was a vault, sealed and silent. They sensed a shift. They couldn't pinpoint it. Their control began to tighten. It became more overt. Vanessa announced they were updating my kitchen. "It's so outdated, Mom. The appliances are a safety hazard. We've hired a contractor. He'll start next week. You can stay with us during the renovation. It was a way to get me out of the house, to have unsupervised access, to perhaps find my documents. That's so kind, I said. But I've already booked a little retreat. A silent spa week. I've been looking forward to it. I'll be out of the way. The lie was smooth. I did book a cheap motel room in the next town. For a week. I took my fireproof box with me. While I was at the spa, Miriam filed the lawsuit. It was a civil complaint. For fraud, undue influence, and financial exploitation. It named Vanessa and Gavin. And FAM LLC. It sought to void the property transfer, to rescind the powers of attorney, to demand an accounting and restitution. It was served to them at their home, and to Gavin at his office. The facade shattered. Vanessa called me, her voice shrill. "Mom, what is this? What have you done? This is insane. They've tricked you. Some lawyer is taking advantage of you." I kept my voice soft. Confused. A lawsuit I don't understand. My lawyer is just reviewing my estate planning. Like you suggested. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. I could hear Gavin yelling in the background. Their response was a secondary attack. As Miriam predicted, they filed a petition for emergency, temporary guardianship. They claimed my recent secretive behavior and paranoia proved I was a danger to myself. They submitted the documents I had signed as proof of their existing authority. They claimed I was squandering my assets on legal fees. They asked the court to freeze my accounts, to give them immediate control. The court date was set. It was not a dramatic trial. It was a hearing in a small, wood-paneled conference room. Before a court commissioner. There were no juries. No spectators. Just us, our lawyers, and a court reporter. Vanessa and Gavin sat across from me. They looked like pillars of the community. Well-dressed, concerned. Their lawyer argued first. He painted a picture of a declining widow. A woman prone to confusion. A woman being manipulated by a predatory attorney. He cited the kitchen renovation plan as proof of their care. He held up the signed power of attorney. "Her own signature grants them this responsibility," he said. Then Miriam spoke. She was methodical. She presented the capacity report from Dr. Aris. She entered it into evidence. She presented the forensic document report on the forged deed. She called the notary as a witness. The young woman testified via video. She admitted her error. Her voice was shaky. Miriam presented the bank records. She showed the transfers to FAM LLC and VGR. She showed the original balance from the condo sale. She showed the current balance. There was a discrepancy of over $400,000, including the proceeds from my cottage. "This is not care," Miriam said quietly. "This is a liquidation, conducted under the guise of family assistance." The commissioner asked Vanessa a direct question. "Can you account for the funds transferred to VGR Holdings?" Vanessa looked at Gavin. He gave a slight nod. "Those were management fees," she said. "For Gavin's services, and for my time managing my mother's household. We never took a dime we weren't entitled to." Her voice was tight with indignation. Miriam had one more document. She had subpoenaed the books for VGR Holdings. It was a company Vanessa had formed 2 years ago. Its main expenditures were not related to my care. There were charges for luxury vacations, for a leased luxury car, for home improvements on their own house. The commissioner reviewed the list. His expression did not change. The hearing lasted 3 hours. It was dry. It was filled with objections and exhibits. At the end, the commissioner did not rule immediately. He took the matter under advisement. We would have his decision in writing. Within 10 days. Those were the longest days of my life. I stayed in my bungalow. I waited. The silence was immense. Vanessa did not call. Gavin did not text. The rain forecast never came. The sky remained a clear, relentless blue. The envelope arrived. It was from the court. My hand was steady as I opened it. The commissioner's order was 17 pages long. It denied the petition for guardianship. It cited my demonstrated capacity. It revoked the durable power of attorney and healthcare directive on grounds of undue influence and bad faith. It voided the deed transfer to Fam LLC. It ordered the title returned to me. It imposed a constructive trust on the assets of Fam LLC and VGR Holdings. It ordered a full forensic accounting. It appointed a neutral fiduciary to oversee the repayment. It granted a permanent restraining order, prohibiting Vanessa and Gavin from contacting me or from managing any of my affairs. It referred the matter of the forged deed to the district attorney's office for potential criminal investigation. It was a complete, quiet victory. There was no applause, no moment of vindication in a crowded courtroom. I sat alone on my veranda. I read the order twice. I felt a deep, hollow exhaustion. The aftermath was procedural. The neutral fiduciary was a stern woman named Patricia. She took control of what was left of Fam LLC. She began selling its assets. She recovered about 60% of what was taken. It would be returned to me in stages. The district attorney's office interviewed me. They decided to pursue charges against Gavin for the forgery and possibly for conspiracy. Vanessa was not charged. She was deemed to be under his influence. Their marriage, I later heard, did not survive. I did not attend any court proceedings for the criminal case. Miriam handled it. Gavin ultimately took a plea deal. He agreed to full restitution. He avoided prison. He lost his professional license. They moved out of state. I changed my phone number. I changed my will. I left everything to a charity that supports senior legal aid. Miriam is now my executor. The money that was returned is in my accounts. I manage it myself, with the help of a fee-only advisor, one I interviewed extensively. I buy my own groceries. I pick up my own prescriptions. The silence in my house is no longer heavy. It is simply silence. Vanessa sent one letter. It came through Miriam's office. It was full of pain and blame. It said I had chosen money over family, that I had been brainwashed, that I had destroyed her life. I read it once. I did not respond. I placed it in the fireproof box with the other documents. It belonged with the evidence. My life now is quiet. I sit on my veranda in the mornings. I watch the gulls. I drink my coffee. The unease is gone. But so is the old, simple trust. The belief that love is a safe harbor. Sometimes, in the deep quiet, I miss the delusion. I miss the woman who believed the highlighted lines. I miss the mother who felt cared for. The justice was procedural. It was factual. It was dignified. It left no room for gloating, only for a vast, quiet sadness, a landscape permanently altered. I have my house back. I have my name on the deed. I have my autonomy. I have a view of the water that is mine alone. I won every point on paper. Yet I wonder, what does it mean to win against your own child? What is left when the quiet theft is over? And all you have is the quiet. It took 2 years for the restitution to be finalized. The last of the funds were deposited into my account. Patricia, the fiduciary, sent a final report. It was a thick binder of transactions and settlements. I filed it on a shelf. I did not open it. The garden became my focus. I hired a local landscaper, a young man named Leo. He knew plants, not my past. We dug new beds along the side of the house. We planted hydrangeas and lavender. The physical work was a relief. The soil under my nails was real. The growth was slow and visible. Miriam checked in every few months. She became more than my lawyer. She became a friend who knew the entire story. We would have tea on the veranda. We never spoke of the case unless I brought it up. One afternoon, she did. "The criminal case is closed," she said. "Gavin's plea is entered. The restitution order is enforceable for 20 years. It's over, Alara." I nodded. I watched a sailboat tip in the wind. "Yes," I said. "It is. The village of Port Haven is small. People talk. I knew my story had pieces of gossip floating around. The widow swindled by her daughter. The court case with the son-in-law. I saw it in the way some people looked at me. A mix of pity and curiosity. I did not engage with it. I smiled politely at the market. I discussed the weather. I became a quiet, regular presence. Eventually, people found newer stories. I started volunteering at the local maritime museum. One morning a week, I cataloged old ship logs, the handwriting of long-dead captains. Their concerns were weather and supplies, mundane details of survival. It was a peaceful, solitary task. It soothed my mind. I received a birth announcement. It was for a baby girl. It was from Vanessa. It was sent to Miriam's office. Miriam brought it to me. She placed the envelope on the table between us. "You don't have to open it," she said. I looked at the envelope. My daughter's handwriting. The return address was in another state, a place I had never been. I picked it up. I opened it. The card was simple. It had a picture of tiny feet. It announced the birth of Clara Grace. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Vanessa and Gavin were listed as parents. I felt a strange dislocation. This child was my granddaughter. She was a fact, a new person in the world, conceived in the midst of the unraveling. I put the card back in the envelope. I handed it to Miriam. "Would you keep this with my file?" I asked. "I don't want it in the house." She took it without a word. That night, I dreamed of the cottage. I was a child, running up the path from the dock. My grandfather was calling me for dinner. The smell of pine and lake water was overwhelming. I woke up with the scent still in my mind. The loss felt fresh again, but it was a cleaner pain now. It was mine, not something someone had stolen, just something that was gone. I decided to take a trip. Not a cruise. Something different. I booked a stay at a writer's retreat. In the mountains. It was a place for solitude and walks. I told no one except Miriam and Leo to mind the garden. I packed a single bag. I drove myself. The journey felt like a reclaiming. Every mile was my choice. The retreat was a cluster of cabins. Mine was at the edge of a fir forest. There was no television, no internet in the rooms. Just a desk, a bed, and a large window. I had brought a journal. I had not written in years. I started writing. Not about what happened. I wrote about the light on the ferns. I wrote about the sound of the creek. I wrote about my mother's hands. Memories untouched by the recent war. It was a way back to myself. the self that existed before I was a victim, before I was a plaintiff. I stayed for 3 weeks. I returned home different, lighter in a way. The bungalow felt more like a home, not just an asset I had won back. I began to entertain a little. I invited Miriam and her wife for dinner. I invited Leo and his partner. We ate on the veranda. We laughed. The sound of laughter in my house was new. It did not feel like an invasion. Then the letter came. It was not via Miriam. It came directly to my mailbox. It was Vanessa's handwriting again. My heart clenched. I took it inside. I sat at the kitchen table. I opened it. It was not a plea. It was not an apology. It was a demand. Mom asterisk. Clara needs a medical procedure. It's specialized. Our insurance won't cover it all. We need $85,000. You have it. It's a fraction of what you took from us. This isn't for me. It's for your granddaughter. She's innocent in all this. You owe her this. You can wire the funds to the account below. Don't make me get lawyers involved again, for her sake. Vanessa asterisk. There was no please. There was a bank account number. A routing number. The tone was cold and entitled. It assumed my guilt. It weaponized a child I had never met. I felt the old calm settle over me. The calm I had learned in Miriam's office. This was a new move. A secondary attack launched from a distance, using a new, vulnerable piece. I took the letter to my study. I scanned it. I saved the scan to a secure folder. I placed the original in a clear plastic sleeve. I put it in the fireproof box. I did not respond. I waited. 3 days later, my phone rang. A blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. Mom, it's me. You got my letter. Clara's condition is time sensitive. I'm not playing games. Call me back at this number. She recited a number. Her voice was strained. Angry. I saved the voicemail. I did not call. A week later, a formal-looking envelope arrived. From a law firm I did not recognize. In the same state as Vanessa's return address. It was a letter before action. It stated that Vanessa Richardson, on behalf of her minor child Clara, was making a formal demand for financial support from her grandmother, Elara Vance. It cited moral obligation and family duty. It threatened a civil suit for emotional distress and familial abandonment if funds were not provided. It gave me 30 days to respond. This was their new strategy. They could not control me through forged documents. They could not get guardianship. So they were trying to sue me, to paint me as a heartless crone, withholding life-saving help from an infant. It was clever. It was designed to go around the restraining order. The restraining order was against contact regarding my asterisk affairs. This was a claim regarding their asterisk child. I emailed Miriam the scanned documents. She called me within the hour. This is frivolous, she said, but it's dangerous in the court of public opinion, and it will cost you money to defend. That may be the point, to drain you through legal fees. A slower form of extraction. What do we do? I asked. We don't pay, she said firmly. We respond through counsel, and we turn their attack into a defense. Do you want to know about the child's medical condition? We could have an investigator verify it. If it's legitimate need, there are charities. But if it's a fabrication, her voice trailed off. We both knew what she meant. Verify it, I said. I need to know the truth, even if I do nothing with it. Miriam hired a discreet investigator in that state. His name was Ray. He was ex-law enforcement. He reported back in 10 days. Clara Grace Richardson was a healthy infant. She had seen a pediatrician for regular checkups. No specialist referrals were on file. No major procedures were scheduled. The $85,000 figure matched the cost of a swimming pool installation, for which Gavin and Vanessa had recently signed a contract. At their new home, the demand was a fraud, a calculated lie, using a baby as a shield. The coldness of it took my breath away. It was a deeper betrayal than the money. It was a corruption of the very idea of need, of family. Miriam drafted a response. It was not sent from her office. She engaged a local attorney in that state to avoid any jurisdictional connection to her. The response was brief. It stated that Alara Vance declined the demand. It noted that any further communications should be directed to this law firm. It included a single line. Should any legal action be commenced, all available remedies will be pursued. It was a warning, a quiet one. The threatened lawsuit never materialized. The silence returned. This time, it felt final. A year passed. My life grew fuller in its small ways. I joined a book club at the library. I learned to bake sourdough bread. I watched the seasons change over the harbor. The hurt did not disappear. It became a part of my geography. A mountain on the horizon. Always there. But I no longer had to climb it every day. On my 75th birthday, I received a card. It was from the charity I had named in my will, the Senior Legal Aid Charity. They thanked me for my planned gift. They told me stories of people they had helped. A man who recovered his pension from a predatory relative. A woman who stopped an illegal eviction by her nephew. Small, quiet justices. It felt good. Better than any birthday wish from a daughter. It felt like my story might do some good. After I was gone, I began to think about legacy. Not the kind made of money and property. The kind made of choices. I had chosen truth over harmony. I had chosen self-possession over a comfortable delusion. It was a lonely choice, but it was mine. One afternoon, Leo brought his young daughter to help in the garden. She was about 4. Her name was Sophia. She was fascinated by worms. I showed her how to place them gently back in the soil. "They're good for the flowers," I said. She looked up at me with serious eyes. "Do they have a grandma?" she asked. I paused. "I suppose all things come from something else," I said. She nodded, satisfied. She went back to digging. The simplicity of the moment was a gift. I realized I was not afraid of dying alone. I was afraid of living without truth. That fear was gone. The truth, however painful, was my companion. It was more reliable than love had been. The final piece of paperwork arrived last month. It was from the IRS. It was a closure notice for the audit of FAM LLC. All taxes had been settled. All penalties paid from the liquidated assets. The case was officially, bureaucratically closed. I signed the acknowledgement. I mailed it back. That was the end of the paper trail. A trail that began with a highlighted signature line. On my veranda. Years ago. I sit here now. The coffee is cold in my cup. The gulls are loud today. They are fighting over a scrap in the water. Life is persistent. It is messy. It continues. I have everything I fought for. My house. My money. My name. My peace. I have a view that stretches to the horizon. I have a quiet that is truly my own. Yet in this perfect quiet, a question sometimes forms. It is not a question of what I lost or what I won. It is a quieter, more persistent wonder. When love becomes a weapon, carefully forged. What is left of the hand that once held it?